Hey, what's up, Panther fans? It's your boy, the Professor, a.k.a. Tony Dunn, and this is the C3 podcast brought to you by CarolinaCatChronicles.com, where every Tuesday night we chop up the latest Panthers news and opinions from the fan perspective. I'm here tonight with my homeboys. Mel Mayock is here. He's back in action. He's from the QC. What's up, my man?
Hey, what's going on, Professor? It's Tuesday night, buddy. Glad to be here.
Dude, we got a lot to talk about, surprisingly. I thought the show we were going to be scraping for information, and we're not. There's actually a ton to talk about and some fun things to talk about, not so fun things to talk about. Joe, how's it going, man?
Oh man, it's a beautiful day here in the low country of South Carolina. It's Tuesday night. I'm pumped to talk some Panthers football, and I can't wait. Let's get this show on the road.
All right, tonight's show is Cam's 28th and the Falcons minus 25 offseason. This is episode 17.15. We've got a cool show tonight. We'll talk about Cam Newton's birthday celebration and the video that came along with it. We'll talk about some of the reactions. We've got tons of stories, whether it comes to Greg Olson calling for more respect while simultaneously raising tons of money for breast cancer research, or how good Shaq could be or how important he'll be to the Carolina Panthers defense this season, as well as Corn Elder, his former coach, is talking him up as potentially a long-term top-tier outside cornerback in the NFL. He believes in him. So we'll be getting into all of that. We've got a special guest tonight coming on at 1:30, Corey Woodruff from the Rise Up Reader podcast. He'll be joining the show to continue our discussion around the league, to see what other teams we're facing. And we started with the division last week was Tampa. This week is the Atlanta Falcons. We're kind of scouting out how their offseason went, as well as how their draft went and their expectations for the upcoming year. So I think we are ready to rock and roll. Joe, we're going to go ahead and start with this, is that before we get into Cam's birthday, some of the big news released by the Panthers this week was a joint practice. They're bringing back the joint practice from 2 years ago. We did it with Miami. This year we're going to be doing it with the Tennessee Titans. That means we have another reason to talk with Sharona about Tennessee Titans football at some point this year.
That's exactly right.
What do you think about these joint practices? The first thing I saw people talking about was how
KB got injured.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's something you got to be concerned with. These joint combined practices can get pretty intense, and it's going to be more lively than a inter-team, one team practicing. So it's a possibility, but really with the KB injury, it was non-contact.
Yeah. I mean, that had very little to do with the joint practice. Potentially, people said, speaking of his weight, he's been working hard to shed some pounds. A lot of people have been celebrating that as of late. But, going into that training camp, we heard similar stories about, on the verge or coming in a little heavy, a little, like to see him a little leaner. And some people believe that may have contributed to the knee injury that he had. I think, if anything, with the joint practices, you may go a little harder just because of the competitive instinct. And maybe that had something to do with what happened to KB. Mel, the way I think about this is iron sharpens iron. And, the Tennessee Titans, they're kind of on the come along. And I think that this would be a great time for the Panthers to just see how they match up against another team that has some real talent and weapons, particularly at the run game.
Yeah, if you recall last year in the draft, everybody on the show was really calling for us to take their running back that they have now, Derrick Henry, at pick 28. So they got some real talent between him and DeMarco Murray. And then, I love their quarterback. They took a wide receiver in the first round. They got a very, very solid offensive line. So, I mean, that's a stout offense. So that'll be a good test for our defense early.
Yeah, I think, too, like you said, they've got DeMarco Murray. Not that they're going to be running hard between the tackles in a joint practice.
But still.
But what you have is you've got their offense that seems to be improving. I don't know if we'll see Marcus Mariota by that point, but you've got, the Panthers defense, we've got to get back. I think we should probably be generating that excitement that we've had about them in the past, about being a top 10, top Fleer tier, whatever it is, top 5 type defense. And I believe that this year is going to be that, so
it better be with the age of our defense, right? I mean, the window is almost closed on that defense.
Yeah, we have a kind of bipolar age thing when it comes to our defenses. The guys are either like as old as Father Time himself, or they're just wet behind the ears.
Right, not too many tweeners.
Right. I did see, Kurt Coleman, who I feel like is old as can be, and he's not. He's the tweener. Cam Newton's the tweener. And you got a lot of young guys and a lot of excitement coming out of the locker room from the defensive side of the ball about Vernon Butler this year, who struggled with that high ankle injury. So while we do have that older element, we do have this young depth, it seems, or in some of these stronger positions. Now, speaking of age, Cam Newton turned 28 years old this past week, and he released a video that was basically what you would do if you were a multimillionaire and you wanted to have a birthday rap video. Even though it wasn't a rap video, people called it, ESPN called it and said he released a rap video. He did sing, like, I want a big booty for my birthday. And he did it on these giant boats in these giant mansions. It was like a total just cookie cutter rap, like megastar rap video. I felt like it was like Entourage meets football meets MTV.
You remember the old ESPN show Hard Knocks, or not Hard Knocks? What was Players? Or what was that show back in the day?
What?
Oh, the football show.
Yeah, where they showed all the partying and stuff. The NFL players.
Wasn't it called like The League?
No,
Like
no, it was something like Players. But anyway,
It's kind of like that new show, Ballers.
There you go. Right. So, the guy loves life. Is he doing everything the way, stereotypical, stuffy, old school NFL fans would love to see him do it? No, that's not who he is, right? I mean, as he puts it, he's dripping in sauce. And if you don't know what that means, you ain't got none.
I do know that, or I would say that I was surprised that the backlash wasn't more or wasn't there. I felt like it did not get that. And I didn't turn on the local Charlotte radio, but I didn't see on a national stage, and maybe I don't pay attention to the national news entities anymore, but I didn't feel like that typical, like, I got to defend Cam the whole time, even though that's what I was expecting.
There was a lot of buzz locally here as far as on WFNZ and on Twitter with FNZ guys and those types of things. But you're right. It wasn't a lead story on ESPN.
What was the main line is that instead of being focused on football, he's focused on being the center of attention and kind of a diva.
There was really two, right? There was the side that was just, the red meat for the haters. There's just people, that just hate Cam Newton. And they just throw out, oh, he didn't die for the ball in the Super Bowl. Oh, he's all about him. All that kind of BS, right? And then you got the other arguments that I tend to kind of agree with about this video. The only problem I had with it is, gosh, just a couple months ago, he had surgery to repair that shoulder. And he's doing backflips off the side of a yacht in Costa Rica. I mean, you're taking a big risk there.
I was thinking this is that you're right. The risk on one hand, on the other hand, I was going, man, he at least the shoulder's feeling good enough to do a backflip into the water.
There you go. That's another way of looking at it.
I thought personally at first I was a little put off, and this is for somebody that loves Cam Newton a ton, and not put off because he did it. I think it was just because I thought, man, well, first, would I have done that when I was 28 years old? And probably it would have been with less taste. So after a couple of minutes of me going, God, he really, it just seems so
unnecessary,
superficial, and you're like hoping that there's a little more depth behind him. And there probably is, but like I said, is what would I do? I think of it from my position, and I'm thinking of it from a guy that's just blue collar, type of person. And but I don't have millions and millions of dollars and that physique. I mean, of course, I would be saying I want big booty hoes and showing off my abs too if I had 1% body fat.
No, but you gotta remember, man. They always say that athletes want to be rappers and rappers want to be athletes.
So true.
So it's his 28th birthday.
Yeah.
He has millions of bucks. He's down in wherever on a yacht, and he's got the means to make a video, and it's his birthday. He's feeling good.
Yeah,
it was a happy time for him.
So the part that got me is you had this Patriot fan, which was at the Patriot Way. Check him out and blow up his timeline if you want to. He came on and said, typical Cam Newton, spent more time talking about his birthday than the announcement of his second child.
Oh, gosh.
I said, good Lord, talk about judgmental. This coming from a team that can't win without cheating.
The Batman, Greg says Eli Manning makes rap videos. Nobody says anything about it. I hope Eli Manning doesn't make rap videos. He makes all those commercials, that's for sure.
Now, Greg also did.
Yeah, that's right. His was bad too. Cam's was barely a rap. It was like one lyric. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, and
he just being stupid and having fun.
Yeah, exactly. And it was well produced. Like, you got to wonder if they like rented a helicopter just for that one shot coming in on that house, or if that's like a stock footage that the people that rent the home give to you, or rent the mansion. Amanda says that she thinks Cam kind of likes trolling everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. He likes to get people talking.
All right, so when I for 1 second went, oh my God, Cam, the big booty hose, and I was like, well, then I started to get into it a little bit. But now I was thinking about it today, and I was thinking, man, this guy's 28 years old, right? And I went and looked up what some other quarterbacks are doing, and Joe, and you guys can't see these graphics, but the audience can. I pulled up some graphics or some stats and comparative stats between some quarterbacks of the last 2 decades at their 28th birthday. And if you look at it, Cam Newton at 28 years old, right now he's got 21,000 passing yards, 21,772 passing yards. He's got 78 interceptions. And touchdowns, he's got 136 throwing touchdowns. His completion percentage is 58.4%. Now, Tom Brady through the first 5 years of his career, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, when he was 28 years old, was in 2005. He had been on an amazing team, 11-3, 9-7, 14-2, 14-2, 10-6. He had a fantastic completion percentage of over 62%. Really, 63% is right where he's at almost. He's at 63.8% for his career, and it looked like at the time he had about 4, let's just say 4 and 7, 7 and 10, 11. He had 12,000 yards.
Wow.
So you're talking about this. He had, listen to this, in his second year, which was 2001, his first year that he played 15 games, started 14. He had 2,800 yards passing. The next year, he had 3,764 yards passing, 21,600. So you're talking about, that's about 8,000, 11. Cam is killing it with 21,000 passing yards and 78 touchdowns. You're talking about, it looks like, now Tom Brady had a ton of touchdowns. He had 18 touchdowns his first year, 28.
I gotta say that 21,000 number sounds high, doesn't it? I mean, 6 years. I mean, he never had the 5,000 passing yard years.
No, but his lowest passing season was 2014, and he only played 14 games, and he still had 3,100 yards.
Right.
Wow.
You know, those are Hall of Fame numbers. You know, another topic for another night, and I'd love to get feedback from the audience out there on what all to compare it to. But is Cam Newton a future Hall of Famer? And what does he got to do to make it a slam dunk?
All right, so those are numbers against Tom Brady. I pulled up Mike Vick to look at what he had going on at this point. And you're talking about, and I have to, it shows his career yardage, but I'm trying to go where he was just 28. He had 3,500 yards in his first 2 years. Only 500 yards passing in year 3. He was injured. And then you throw in 5,000, 7,000 more. He only had like 12,000 passing yards by the time he was in his first 5 years, but he was 26. Only 26, and then he missed a couple years. It looks like he had about 30, 50, 62 touchdowns, while Cam Newton, what did I say? He was at 78. These are all.
But with Cam Newton, you got to count his rushing touchdowns too to give an accurate portrayal.
Right, that's what
I didn't
special.
even pull this up. And let me see. I got all the graphics. I'm not flipping them through for the audience. So here, I want to go to Donovan McNabb next. Donovan McNabb, it looks like through his first, by the time he was 28, his highest completion percentage was a 64%, and that was in his 6 year. He actually has some stats that are kind of comparable to Cam's. You're talking about he had 948 yards passing he started 6 games in his rookie year, but then he had a 3,300 yards his second year. He went 11-5. They went 11-5 again his third year, 57% completion rate, 3,200 yards. Then he dips down to 22. So he's got a good amount of yards. But look, his career, Donovan McNabb finished his career with 37,000 passing yards, while Cam Newton already has 21,000. You know, through 11 years with Philadelphia, he had 32,000 passing yards. And you're talking about touchdowns. He had career 234 touchdowns. So Cam Newton's a force. Let me see. I thought I had one other going, or a couple other. Steve Young had a late start to his career. He didn't do a lot early on, particularly passing, right?
Yeah, he sat behind Joe Montana for a long time.
Yeah.
Right. But career passing yards, 33,000 yards.
Wow.
For his career. Cam is well on his way there, and you're talking about career touchdowns. He did throw 232 career touchdowns. That's pretty good. And the last guys that I got to show was John Elway.
Ooh.
And John Elway, by the time he was 28, never had a completion percentage above 56%. All right. By 28 years old, he the highest he ever threw in passing yards was, it looks like he threw 3,800 yards passing his third year in the league. He did finish with 51,000 yards in his career. But I feel like Cam Newton is on pace with the yardage with him, ahead of him with touchdowns. Now, John Elway had 300 career touchdowns, but through 28, when he was 28 years old, he had, that makes 30 and 40. What's 30 and 38? 68. Gosh, he had like 78. He's like at Cam Newton is better than John Elway.
But all right, let me make two quick points there. The league today is totally different than it was back then too.
Yes.
Right? So to defend John Elway a little bit, it wasn't quite the pass happy league that it is today.
Right.
But
they were rushing.
But in Cam Newton's defense, when he gets Run CMC, Christian McCaffrey in there, and Curtis Samuel, and he's not having to wait and chunk the ball 70 yards every play and wait 10 seconds and get hit in the head, his completion percentage is going to go up.
Yeah,
quite a bit. So I mean, you're going to see improvement from here on out from Cam, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I got from this, guys, was that not that like I'm trying to say Cam Newton is better than these dudes, right? And I'm not trying to say that. What I'm trying to say, in fact, I don't think it's necessary to compare them, even though I just compared him to 5 quarterbacks. What I do think, though, is that I think that a lot of these guys, particularly Steve Young, Elway was good, but his completion percentage was very low.
Right.
To start that out. And I want to pull that graphic back up because he finished his career with a 56.9% completion rate. My thing that I'm just trying to get to is Cam, if he can put a decade together of healthy play.
Just a decade.
Yeah, I know, but that's what these guys, that's what John Elway did that McNabb didn't do, was put 10 more years in past that 11 or 6 more years. But I think that these guys, when we look at the past legends, the Steve Youngs, the John Elways, that we think of what their total career was at the end of their career.
Right.
So Cam's completion percentage can continue to improve. His yards can continue to go up. His touchdowns can continue to go up. He can continue to get better. And I think that's where we have to kind of be excited and actually be appreciative of what he's done, but also optimistic about what he can be still.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's see. Moving on from Cam and his birthday. I thought this was a cool story, guys. Greg Olsen, turns out him and his mom raised $100,000 for breast cancer research, $100K, and then the same day, essentially, or 2 days later, the top 100 players come out in the NFL, and Greg Olsen is number 67, and he wasn't happy. He said he wanted to be in the top 50, clearly. He tweeted out, "I guess I'll have to go get 1,000 yards again and just put it to rest." Story of my career, hashtag.
Do it, Greg. Do it, Greg.
Add that to your rap career, guys, is that he's coming in with a little chip on his shoulder.
Good.
I think so. I'm excited about that, and if he can put 1,000 yards together and with these other offensive weapons, I think we could all of a sudden go back to very powerful offense. And you know what? Imagine if Greg Olsen reaps benefits from these offensive additions, which he should. But imagine how good he's been and the chemistry he has with Cam. It's not like Cam's just going to forget about him. Greg Olsen's he's gonna go out there and put another 1,000 up.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Who was it that was guarding Greg Olsen last year? Was it linebackers? Those are the guys that now have to be mindful of Christian McCaffrey being out en route. So it's going to take attention away. It's going to give him more one-on-one matchups, less zone coverage, and bigger opportunities. But, hey, a question for you guys that I'm not even sure about. I'm genuinely asking, what's the latest with Gary Barnidge? Because, man, if you add him to the mix, woo-wee, that would be awesome.
Bobby Blue says Cam Newton has 21,000 passing yards, 136 passing touchdowns. I thought that he had 78 passes. Maybe that was I was looking at his interceptions. No, he had 78 interceptions. He had 100. So you're talking about more than John Elway at that point. Mm-hmm. In that career.
Tony, in addition to that 136 passing touchdowns, he's got 48 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. Bobby says on YouTube, if he continues to play at a high level, he should make the Hall of Fame. I believe that 100%. I did want to get to two things before our guest comes on. One is Greg sent us an email, the Batman, you can find him on YouTube, is that he mentioned is that he brought up Buffalo and Sammy Watkins not having his fifth-year option signed, and he floated out the concept. He asked, and I'll ask you guys for him, what do you think about the potential of trading Kelvin Benjamin and a second-round pick for Sammy Watkins? And what his point is that Sammy Watkins a more complete player than Benjamin despite the injuries, but not that Kelvin Benjamin has been injury-free either.
I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair because we haven't really seen KB.
I would reserve judgment for you.
Enough of him, and he hasn't really learned how to play in the NFL yet.
Would you do it straight up? Would you trade Kelvin Benjamin straight up for Sammy Watkins?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
I would for sure. But you know who I think would be a great person to ask?
Who's that?
Our guest next Tuesday night at 9:00, the editor-in-chief for DraftTech.com and the writer for the Buffalo Bills, Dean Kindig. So tune in next Tuesday night, and we'll bring this up as we talk. We talk Bills.
We'll visit this question at length. I do think this is that I thought that Sammy Watkins, if he could have stayed healthy, even though he's had that nagging foot injury, but he's like Julio.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I would have loved to seen him progress into that. So imagine having Julio versus Julio. I would take it.
Good timing on that comment there.
Yeah, and speaking of, and we'll get back at the end of the show to the last two topics. I did want to bring up some things about Shaq Thompson, but we've got our special guest tonight, Corey Woodruff from the Rise Up Reader podcast. Corey, thanks for joining the C3 podcast.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. And just got done eating dinner with Von Miller, so he's doing well, and he's told me to tell you guys hello, and that if Rivers is in the area, that he'd like to meet him up again sometime.
That's funny. Did you have to cover the check, and did you leave a $25 tip?
Well, actually, I only left $3, and it was the dinner went really well till the end, and then right at the end, things just went really downhill fast.
Things went south fast. Huh?
All right,
yeah, it did.
Corey, if you could, just for our audience, tell them how they can find you on social media and where they can find your work before we jump into our Atlanta Falcons talk.
So I'm over on Twitter at Corey Woodruff 47. There you can hear me ramble about the Falcons and a myriad of other subjects. And then I am at riseupreader.com. Actually, we'll have a defensive preview coming out here pretty soon. So stay tuned for that. And then all of our Falcons coverage throughout. I like to think I'm the only Falcons writer that can throw a Bachman-Turner overdrive reference in one of his articles. So
wow. You were waiting for that one.
Hey, Corey, I got to ask you, man. Hey, this is Aaron Ford. How you doing, man? Good. Hey, I got to ask you, man. Where are you at, man? You look like you snuck out of the office for a minute at work, and you're down in the basement.
I'm in a friend's office right now. We are co-watching the Spurs Warriors game, and then the Preds. I'm in Nashville, so the Preds are playing the Ducks. So I'm
nice.
cheering on the Preds tonight. So yeah.
Well, thanks for joining, man.
All right. Of course. Thanks for having me.
A lot to talk about. What we're doing right now is kind of peeking around, starting with the NFC South, and then we'll kind of branch out to the other teams on the Panthers schedule to talk about their draft and their offseason, because we've just talked about the Panthers since the end of the season and draft, and we're kind of just out of things, or we're tired of it. So we wanted to talk about something we hate. So we brought on you to talk about the Atlanta Falcons. If you could, why don't you just tell me your immediate reaction to the Atlanta Falcons draft?
The draft class this year was interesting because all of Falcons Twitter completely overthought how our pick was going to go. We spent all of this time analyzing all of these guys, and then they picked Takk McKinley out of UCLA, and you began to look at the kind of player he was. He's fast. He's physical. He's a good locker room guy. He's aggressive on the field. And it's like all of these Dan Quinn check marks. You're like, oh, oh, it's like when we draft the same archetype of player every time. The athleticism, the aggressiveness, and again, it's kind of predictable for Quinn, but it also has worked really well. And I'm, with any draft class, you don't know till the season starts. But I like the picks a lot. I think Takk McKinley and Duke Riley. I don't know if you guys have heard, but Duke is the new weak side linebacker.
Okay.
So he's going to be taking over for Devondre Campbell, who's going to shift over and play more on the strong side of things. It'll be interesting with this class, though, because
does that leave? Is it Deion Jones in the middle?
Yes, Deion Jones will be manning the middle now permanently, and he's put on actually 10 extra pounds to play more of the Bobby Wagner role.
What do you think about this Duke Riley pick? Third round, pick number 75. It looks like a linebacker out of LSU. The way I always think of the Atlanta Falcons is that you guys have never had, or it's been a long time since I've seen a lot of strength at the linebacker position.
Sure.
Maybe some guys that you want to cheer for, the kind of lunch pail type of players.
Oh, yeah.
But never necessarily the strength. Not that, it hasn't been a force for a team like the Panthers, though, where a lot of our strength comes from the linebacker position. Mm-hmm. So it seems like, you got 2 years in a row that you're really trying to tackle that. That does have a little the fingerprints of Dan Quinn on it. You
can never tell until they get on the field, but with Deion Jones, Devondre Campbell, and Duke Riley, this might be the best linebacking core the Falcons have had in a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, in my memory, that I can remember.
Because, again, I think you're exactly right. Linebacker was a position in the Mike Smith era that was never prioritized. They drafted Sean Weatherspoon out of Mizzou in 11 or 10, I believe. It was right the year before Julio. And Sean Weatherspoon was good, but he was often hurt. Right. And when you have a guy that gets the injuries and the build-up, he spent a first-rounder on him. We had some years with Stephen Nicholas and, quite frankly, the Curtis Lofton era, I suppose, where, you would get good play from the position, but it wasn't outstanding play. And again, you guys know this. You've watched our games for years. Defense is not always a strong suit of the Atlanta Falcons.
No, it has not, man. But no. You guys seem to be Quinn's brought some life to that defense, it seems, and got a lot better last year. And you got Vic Beasley, who is screaming on Twitter all day today, and then making some commercial. And now you add on Takk. If he can live up to that, to what Grandmama says, I mean, you guys are really trying to round the team out, it seems.
I know. It's very encouraging from a fan's perspective and someone who's been following the team for a while now. I think this season's Falcons defense will be the best defense they've fielded in probably a decade plus. Wow. We may be talking, with the secondary play, which right now the strength of the defense is the Falcons secondary. You've got guys at the 4th and 5th levels that could be probably starting at a second corner position on other teams. With Desmond Trufant and Robert Alford both inked to pretty long-term deals, those positions are set. Jalen Collins really came on nicely in Trufant's absence, which, again, none of us were expecting. This was a major point of, nervousness when Collins stepped up, but he played completely differently to what his first year entailed. Brian Poole, kid out of Florida, was undrafted, really did a nice job at the nickel last year. We've got CJ Goodwin and Deji Olatoye, which are two names you might not know, but they actually played some pretty solid snaps in the Super Bowl and are really nice depth pieces. And then you add DeMonte Kazee, which is a draft pick, might be playing more safety, but the kid was a really great nickel corner in college, really nice ball hawk, really nice tackler. Top to bottom right now, this Falcons defense, again, you guys know this how football works. You don't know till you get on the field.
Sure. But Joey, these guys are retooling, man. I mean, not is that they're really adding depth, Joe. They added a defensive end. They added a guard in the third. To an offense that is the line was getting better. The defensive line was getting better. Joey, don't you think that this Atlanta Falcons team looks on paper poised to be a strong, to not be the leader, to lead the NFC right now?
Let's sell it like it is. I mean, let's be honest. They're the division champs. They come into
NFC champs, the conference champs.
And it is going to be that way until somebody takes the title from them. And they're looking like they are going to be doing everything they can on the field to keep that title, that crown.
Right. All right. So, Sean Harlow, guard, was your third round pick. Were you excited? Because look, the offensive line, just like anybody, any team, when your offensive line played well last year with a fantastic running attack to take some of the pressure off of them in the pass blocking situation. Matt Ryan, became deadly with Julio and his other options there. That's got to be, while it's not exciting to say you picked a guard in the third round, that may be the type of pick that you guys need to create long-term success.
It's interesting. With Harlow, it's the very first pick in the Dan Quinn era where I can for sure say, at the level he was picked, which is, mid-round guy, that he won't see the field in 2017.
Okay.
It's interesting because now that the team has solid starting and solid depth, you can take a developmental guy like Harlow. I've seen pundits say maybe he competes for, maybe he wins the right guard spot. Now, again, I'm going to tell you guys the secret of Falcon, excitement this year. There is a little bit of nervousness about right guard right now because Chris Chester has left. We have got a battle right now between Wes Schweitzer, who was a 6th round pick last year, and Ben Garland, who was he's been a rotational guy, played some defensive tackle for us some last year, and is our primary backup center, and Harlow. These 3 guys right now are competing for the right guard spot.
I heard, or should I say I read, that it's pretty much Schweitzer's job to lose.
That is pretty accurate. Schweitzer looked good in camp last year, and there was this 2 or week stretch where we all kind of thought, wait, is he going to supplant Chris Chester? And there was a lot of, Schweitzer was getting first team reps in camp, and there's a little bit of intrigue, but often with training camp intrigue, it dies down once you get to week 1. And Chris Chester was the starter. Schweitzer was inactive for most of the year. Schweitzer is a really good run blocker. That's his strength. As a pass protector, not so strong. And again, when we got to play you guys twice a year, and you've got K'Wan Short, Star Latulier, and Vernon Butler as your trio at D-tackle rotation, you don't want to have subpar right guard play. Because, again, Matt Ryan needs a good right guard. I watched years where we were playing, a milkshake and a shovel for our right guard and right tackle spots, and it didn't always go well. It was messy. So, you prefer to have humans over inanimate objects when you play in a game, but it's tough. I mean, I think the Falcons have top to bottom one of the most complete rosters in the NFL. How am I saying that? I have no idea. If this had been a year ago, I'd have laughed at you if you'd said something like that. But the team has done such a great job of drafting and signing the right free agents and really building on what they've had. But you do have some trouble at right guard. We don't know how Schweitzer's going to do. And if that tends to fall off a little bit, and then Steve Sarkisian, the new offensive coordinator, takes some time to get adjusted, you may see the Falcons offense come back to earth a little bit. Again, I still think they're a top 10 unit. I'm not expecting them to have a 16 season again. I don't think that's possible.
All right. I've got a real serious question here. You're a Falcons fan, right?
Yes, indeed.
All right. And you come across very likable.
Thank you.
Quite humble, very knowledgeable. Admit it, though. I mean, isn't there a part of you that would love to just jump over and become a Carolina Panther fan? Because we got room over here. For somebody like yourself, come on over, man.
Maybe.
I'll tell you what. I have heartedly defended Cam Newton many a time on Twitter. I think Cam Newton is an incredible human being. I hate anti-Cam Newton Twitter. I hate that people get angry at his antics. I think if you don't want to see Cam Newton celebrate, then don't let him score on you. That's my thought. So, again, I hate it when he scores on us. I can't stand him on the field. But as a player, I think he's I think – now, this is what I want to ask you guys this. As someone who watches you twice a year, did you want to drive to Carolina and give David Gettleman a word of mouth when he signed Matt Khalil to that contract? Was that like – how has that been perceived with you guys? Are you angry about it? Do you feel optimistic that he can get back to how he played as a rookie? I mean, how are you guys?
Yeah, I think that we are. You want to talk about a team that's fielded a milkshake and a shovel? Those had a lot more life in them. Those objects than our left tackles have had since Jordan Gross retired. So I think as long as Matt Khalil, if he can play, I mean, if he can just be on the field, even if he's bad like he's been when he was injured. He's better than what we had. Because, I mean, look, in 2015, we had Michael Orr, who was if you looked at what he did, it was a pretty good season, but he was mid-level. He was 15th, 16th type tackle in the league. And we had the offensive season that you guys had last year. So, look, if Matt Khalil has a pulse right now, I think it's better than what we've had. I do think there's a lot of upside. And I, for one, have been really excited about this pick because we finally did something decisive. Sure, it may not work. It could be an epic fail. But you know what has failed for the last 3 years? Not doing anything.
Right. That's a good point. I think that's a fair point. I think with you guys.
Yeah, that's been the problem. That has been the problem is our lack of doing anything to improve that left tackle spot. We have tried to put a Band-Aid on a severed limb, and it just not work. It has not worked. So finally they addressed it, and I think they went after the best possible left tackle that was a free agent this year, or I should say the left tackle with the highest upside. He has proven that he can play well, because he did it his rookie year. His brother is a team captain on the Panthers. Brother is a center on the offensive line to which he'll be joining. His brother is going to have high expectations from him and do everything he can to get him to that level of play we saw.
Gene on YouTube said Matt Khalil just needs to stand there and he's better than Mike Remmers. And
I was going to say last year we had Mike Remmers. This year we at least have Khalil with possibly Orr backing him up, and we have a rookie to start working into the rotation on the left or right. So at the very least, at least on paper today in May, we're a better offensive line than we were.
But to be more to be probably where you were thinking, or what you were suggesting with Matt Khalil is that while we're excited and optimistic, I mean there's some question marks around his play since his rookie year. And, there was a lot of argument among Panther fans. First, they said they overpaid. They said that this was the wrong guy. But at the end of the day, when you looked at those people who were critical of the move, they were also 2 weeks earlier when we were talking about Russell Okung being the potential guy that you go and get. They were saying he's just as bad. So really, their whole kind of mantra was this, and a lot of Panther fans are doing this right now, is they're just saying everybody sucks. And that is their, then they can be like, oh, we're pleasantly surprised if Matt Khalil plays well. But
or they can say, we told you if he plays awful.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's exactly what they're doing. All right. I do want to ask you about this, is that we talked a little bit about your draft picks.
Sure.
I would say don't get too excited about the Demontre Kazi guy. Simply because he comes from San Diego State, and we've had bad luck with a nickel corner from San Diego State. I've seen a lot of players coming out of there recently, but I was going to ask you, what did you guys do in the offseason that you are maybe excited about, upset, not so excited about, because you guys had this just a phenomenal running game, just so many weapons. It seemed like, I always forget, is it Gabriel or what's the guy's name?
Taylor Gabriel.
Yeah, who's an amazing player. I think this is the guy to watch. And there's a guy on the bench, essentially, on your team from my town. I'm an ECU Pirate. I'm an alumni of, and you got Justin Hardy there, who's got the best hands in the history of man. And I think Julio or somebody. No, it was who's the guy that you guys got from Cincinnati 2 years ago? Sanu.
Mohamed Sanu. Yeah.
He said that Justin Hardy's got the best hands on the team.
I look at the offseason, and Atlanta was relatively quiet at the start of free agency, which is not always a bad thing, because typically if you're signing big contracts at the beginning of free agency, that's your excitement for the year. You're living for that Adam Schefter tweet every single year.
You are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the last decade.
There you go.
There we go.
The all-season winner every year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, them and the Jack. They do it big down in Florida.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, that's the ever-long competition. But our offseason was slow until they signed Dontari Poe, and Dontari Poe.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's a big signing.
It is. Yeah. It's very big.
Guy. And
when you got, we have a joke around Falcons Twitter where we watched him through the free agency process, and he visited a lot of teams. And we think he did that because he got to have a lot of free steak dinners. And again, can't blame a man for getting free food. I do the same thing. But, sign him to a 1-year, $8 million deal. I think it's the kind of signing, again, Dontari Poe's a good player. He has tapered off a little bit over the past 2 years from being a dominant player consistently because Kansas City rode him like the prize pony and ran him into the ground. So he's not going to have to play that role in Atlanta, nor should he. I think Grady Jarrett is the primary middle guy you want rushing the passer from the interior.
Good Clemson football player right there.
Yes, indeed. I tell you, we like our Clemson guys in Atlanta. Yep. And I think with Poe, you bring him in to play the run. And again, we haven't had – again, that was the secret to the Falcons last year. We blew so many leads because guys would just be able to pound it on us late in the game. I can't tell you how many games, again, being a Falcons fan, like I'm sure you guys can relate, you have to have really good heart condition because if you don't, we blow leads like nobody else.
Oh, man, we're the cardiac cats, bro, man. Like, that's what they call us is that we even when we're like you guys, I mean, you guys blow the lead usually, but we blow it and still win most of the time.
That's good. It's a good trait to have. Sometimes we don't, but yeah, I think that the Dontari Poe signing, it was an aggressive move by Dimitroff and Quinn to get
a 1-year deal is, I mean, while it's aggressive, it's still just a 1-year contract.
It is a rental.
It's kind of a show me kind of contract. Like, you come in, we're going to pay you $8 million. What kind of year you have? If you have a good year, maybe we'll do a 3-year deal next time.
What is your cap situation like?
Kind of deal it was. Just an opportunity for him to come in and really impress.
Yeah.
A cap situation right now is that we're looking for any and all donations. If anybody wants to pitch in and help the cap out a little bit.
You're on the wrong podcast for that, brother.
Is that really the case? You guys were in bad shape cap-wise?
Right now, we're pretty tight. And we came in pretty well. And again, we've got some extensions coming up. They're going to relieve the cap a little bit. Matt Ryan's going to have some money coming his way, obviously. Devonta Freeman will probably get paid this summer. Arthur Blank has said so much that he will be getting his. But yeah, the Poe deal had kind of tightened things up a little bit. Right. We're going to have enough to sign our rookies, and we've already got that all squared away. So we've got a little insurance fund. But yeah, right now, I mean, 18 will release a lot, but yeah, we're pretty snug.
Well, see, that's okay though. I mean, in theory, is that while it feels tight right now in that, but as long as it's not bad money in the long run,
sure.
And if some of those people are coming off the rolls and the payroll, and like you said, an extension. While a lot of people focus on the idea that it's big money being given to somebody, a lot of times it can alleviate a burden at the same time. I did see this on Pro Football Focus, and the last question we got for you guys. Your running attack is one of those things that I forget how fantastic it was last year. Because I think I'm sitting there just on the other side looking at Vic Beasley being mad. I'm looking at Julio Jones just have 500, 300, 400 yards, whatever he had against the Panthers. Matt Ryan, who I hate more than anybody, or not more than anybody, I just think is a total douche. But there's some butt hurt from me on that one. But the thing that I'm saying is this:
300 yards.
I know, 300 yards, 500 yards passing. It was
the day he said, "Get the F off our field."
I
man.
know.
We've been playing that over and over on this show.
But with all that focus, I tend to kind of forget, or it gets drowned out, overshadowed a little bit, how good that running attack was. I saw a tweet from Pro Football Focus that Tevin Coleman last year had the highest yards per reception by a running back in the Pro Football Focus era. Spencer Ware in 16 was close. Tevin Coleman had 13.8 yards he averaged per reception. D'Angelo Williams, by the way, in 2013 had 12.8, averaged 12.8. But tell us a little bit about how you got to – Matty Ice has to be happy about that support he has on the run game.
It is a beautiful unicorn that I think Falcons fans know deep down isn't going to last very long.
Okay.
Don't get too scared that this is going to be like a 5-10 year team. Tevin Coleman, to me, is a one-contract guy. And you have to choose between he and Devontae Freeman. You cannot pay them both.
That's what I wanted to ask you next, was actually if you see Coleman in the future.
I don't, personally. There's a lot of Falcons Twitter who flips me around on that. They think that Devontae Freeman is the guy that leaves and that Tevin Coleman is the one that's going to be groomed for the future. I don't think that's the best football move to make, and I don't think it's what the Falcons will end up doing. Right. Tevin Coleman is an outstanding receiving running back. Between the tackles, he's got great downhill speed, but he lacks the full, complete back set that Devontae Freeman has. And again, you don't let a guy like Devontae Freeman go. Devontae Freeman right now is a top 5 running back in the NFL.
He's special, yeah.
He is. He's very special. He's part of the reason why they've been able to install the brotherhood mentality. And again, the way that Freeman has handled this contract situation, you cannot ask for any more professionalism. And they're going to pay him. And when they pay him, he'll be making $8-10 million a year. He's an elite running back. He'll get paid like it. And with Tevin Coleman, it's a great thing to have for the next 2 seasons. But again, when he gets out, he's going to want to get paid. And he deserves it. He's a great player. And the Falcons are not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, especially a running back. You got to get that money while you can. You know,
yes,
you don't have – there's no friendly deals at running back. You better get it while the getting is good.
And again, you get a team that is attracted by what Tevin can do and wants to use him more in between the tackles. They're going to give him a 4-year deal and pay him pretty nicely.
Yes.
And again, we drafted Brian Hill out of Wyoming in the 5th round. And my thinking is Hills is he's not the receiver that Coleman is, but I think he can do between the tackles or have the potential to do what Coleman can. And, having Coleman right now is a wonderful luxury. It gives us probably the best 1-2 running back tandem in the league. But you can't sustain that forever. That's just the nice thing about drafting well is you can get guys on your team at the same time. But then when it comes to pay them, it's tough to keep it going.
2 years in the NFL is a long time, though. So
yes, it is.
Yeah,
I'm very joyous.
Yeah, that's why we've stocked up on defensive tackles.
All right.
Yes, you guys are.
Joe, any last questions for Corey before we get out of here? We got to get our ice up picks in and got 2 more stories to get to before 10.
No, I think that's it, Corey. I'm Joe Romano, by the way.
Hey, it's nice to meet you, man.
Yeah, man. I really do appreciate you coming on. We never really ever talked before, even on Twitter. It's been a real pleasure having you.
Hey, thanks, guys. Well, I appreciate it. And
Corey, tell them where they can find your work one more time.
My work right now is on riseupreader.com. Check us out. It's me and Mike Apprel, who's Mr. Rise Up Reader himself. We have the Rise Up Reader podcast, which is our Falcons podcast. So if you're looking for if you're a Panthers fan and you just need some hate listening for a while, I usually sing once an episode. So, if you'd like to hear me, can you hit us a little tune right now?
Yeah, hit us up.
Oh, I would be honored to. I'd be honored. Let's see. Josh Norman is now with the Redskins. Gettleman did not pay him fair. Instead of having Josh Norman, Julio ripped out Ben Wickery's hair.
Oh, yes. Well done.
Thank you.
You know what?
Awesome.
I'm totally subscribing to the podcast because I try to listen to some other Panther podcasts, but then I go, gosh, I just write and read and talk about this crap 7 days a week. So I generally go to other teams' podcasts and their work a lot so I don't look like an idiot. So we get so tunnel vision on our own team, or at least I do. I just look at the Panthers, and sometimes I don't even know who we're playing.
Yeah, it's being an NFC South fan is difficult. And again, I'm going to be fully upfront. I think you guys are the second best team in the division right now. I don't trust the Buccaneers. I will never trust the Buccaneers. I don't know how many times over the past decade we've heard that it's the Bucs' time. It's the Bucs' time. It's the Bucs' time. And really, the Bucs stops there. Like, it doesn't go past that. And we all know the Saints are trash, so we don't need to spend any time on that.
I'm with you. I think this is that when it comes to Jacksonville, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'm going to throw Tampa Bay in there, even though Tampa has made a lot of strides this year that makes me again hesitate. Like, I'm like, I get right back to where I'm like, oh, this could be the Bucs' year. I have just kind of made a pact, especially for I'm more firm on the Jaguars than I am on the Bucs, but you got to show me. Like,
you do.
You just got to show me.
Right.
Yeah. Like, again, they year after year after year after year, it's always, is it their year? And it never is. So again, unless they beat the Falcons twice and can prove themselves as the best team, I'm not buying it. I mean, they might be a 9-7 team next year. But then again, I'm a little bit nervous about you guys because I think if Cam gets halfway decent protection and gets his confidence back, I think he can get back to 2015 or close to it. And
I agree.
You know,
we could have Samuel. I mean, think about what the division has done. I mean, you got 2 years in a row that teams from our division have gone to the Super Bowl. Right now, if the Panthers could get anywhere close, if they could get in the same ballpark of 2015, as well as the Falcons being in the same ballpark as 2016, you've got two of the best teams in the league. You know, in the last decade.
And then if the Bucs are as much improved, and let's face it, Jameis Winston's pretty daggone good. He's only going to get better.
I agree with that.
So you got 3 incredible teams on the rise, in my opinion. So it's going to be a fun year. Now the Saints, trash.
I don't know.
That's right.
A long year for the Saints.
Yes, it is. And it's going to be
watch
so
them put
fun
40
to
a
watch.
week. Nah, they're going to put 40 a week, and they're going to win 9 games.
Oh gosh,
They might do 40, but they'll give up.
They lost their best wide receiver.
Yeah, who cares? They just recycle them through. Drew Brees is good. All right. Thanks a lot, Corey. We're gonna go on and keep going with the Panthers topic. All right.
The offer to join us is still on the table, man.
Yeah.
Hey, I didn't even realize it. I am wearing blue, so
we'll take the singing. We'll take the singing. You can keep your Falcons, though. Thanks a lot. All right, guys. I saw this on Panthers Twitter. Panther Pulse poll: which group will make the biggest leap in 2017? Offense, defense, or special teams? And of course, I voted offense because I felt like, I don't know if our defense went down. Both, either one. You put Luke back on defense, and you put Matt Khalil potentially somewhat good. Christian McCaffrey, a lot of excitement. Yeah, dude, and a healthy Cam.
How bad was our special teams last year, though? I mean, I'm going to vote there.
Okay.
Well, let me bring up a point before we get too far ahead. KB is coming, right? No,
say it again. You're breaking up a little bit. Say it one more time, Joe.
We have KB for one more year after this season.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and we don't have to keep him, but we get him. I mean, we have to pay him $8 million or so, but yeah, we get him for a fifth. We've signed the 5th-year option.
I think he is gonna really want to prove something this season.
Yeah.
He's gonna come back healthy, so I think he's gonna have a drive, and it's really going to make him more like the player we saw as a rookie.
I hope so. The weight is going to be the telltale, man. We'll see. If he comes in at 280, 285, there's no way. There's no way.
Man, but they have been. I know one group that probably is feeling a little bad about the way they've maybe handled this, and maybe that's Rivera. I'm still trying to figure out Rivera's motivational tactics and strategies at times. He calls out some players, and then he leaves other ones off the table. But you know, he was a little hard on. I won't say he was a little hard. He said that he confirmed that KB was overweight. He didn't sugarcoat it. He didn't try to dismiss it and downplay it. But the Panthers media has been very intent on showing how hard Kelvin Benjamin is working. And you see that maybe a little bits of it is a little overblown. Some of it is a little off-season flab, but he's there every day while other guys potentially aren't. So I think
in the pictures we saw, he didn't look that overweight.
His face is so flat and big. You know what I'm saying? He's got it looks like somebody hit him in the face with a frying pan. You know what I'm saying? And I think that makes him look a little tubbier. Yeah, than he is. I mean, all right. So, Mel, why do you think, how can our special teams how can they make a significant leap forward when the best, I mean, you can go and say Louis Murphy, but I mean, he's a gunner.
The guy from Tampa Bay is going to have a big impact.
No, I said Louis Murphy. I meant Shepard.
But you meant Shepard.
Well, no, I mean, you're going to have Christian McCaffrey returning punts and kickoffs.
Yeah.
And let's face it, Gano was very average last year, and that's being kind.
Gosh, yeah, he stinks.
He was bad at the worst possible time.
Right. And he cost us. He cost us the game in Denver, and had he made that kick, good gracious, it could have been a different year.
It could have been, yes. And not only that, but that wasn't the only game he cost us. He cost us a few more games throughout the year.
Yeah, he did. So this 7th round kicker, let's don't count this young man out.
I'm feeling for him.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting point from Junkie for Fame on YouTube. Says this: who's the biggest loser because of the offensive additions on the roster? And I gotta think that it's Devin Funchess. Because I'm believing this is that I think Kearis Garrett comes in and gives a real chance of giving Funchess a run for his money, just straight up.
I think it's going to be Fred Ross.
You think he's the biggest winner?
I think he's going to be the one that is going to pose the biggest threat.
A lot of people have been excited about him and his hands.
Yes.
Well, I think Michael Orr may be the biggest loser.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great point, Aaron. That really is a great point, because if he can't come back from this, he'll be in the 3rd spot. He might be on the practice squad.
Yeah, I think Gano is probably shaking his little boots a little bit.
And, Gano, you didn't.
Yeah, Gano, you didn't. And I think that Darrell Williams has to be feeling the pressure. You know, but he had a lot to earn anyway. And another one, too, speaking of, I had it on the show kind of itinerary, but we're not going to really get into it tonight. I saw Ryan Dallaire on Good Morning Football. And by the way, Ryan Dallaire is a good-looking man.
He's smart, dude.
Yes.
He's super smart.
Yeah, he was well-dressed. He was well-spoken, kind of humble. And but I would say this, if anything, I felt like the dudes on the Good Morning Football looked like douchey bags more than anybody. I mean, they just looked like they were like total nerds.
Yeah.
Good Morning Football. Where is that show?
That's on NFL Network.
Yeah, that's NFL Network, and all they wanted to talk about was dabbing and having fun and all of this.
Cam Newton dances and
But Ryan Dallaire, he didn't seem like afraid. He felt like a part of the team. He was talking about injuries being and taking care of your body, but I would say he's a guy that is going to have a lot of fighting to do to stay on this.
That is one young man that just exploded on the scene against the Tampa Bay Bucks at that 2-sack game. I think it was. And we just thought he was going to be the next big thing, and it just has not come to fruition. But I'm pulling for the young man.
Yeah, he had some injury things going on towards the end of that rookie year. He was an undrafted free agent too. Is that my thing is it would be interesting to see if he sticks on the roster. Who cares what Panther fans got to say? That tells us a little something about what the coaching staff has to say about him, because they have put him in there a lot. He has gotten a lot more playing time than than we thought anybody thought he deserved.
Right.
So that means that the coaching staff sees something about it. This is probably the biggest story we do have to talk about, or at least Panthers.com is pushing it up, is the necessity of integrating Shaq Thompson into the defense continually, to the point of where they're already talking about putting Thomas Davis on the pitch count.
Yep.
So you got Shaq Thompson, and I went back, and there is a cool Shaq Thompson highlight video that I tweeted the other day, and I watched it. And I would say before I watched that video, I'm such a sucker for emotions. Like I would just swing like a pendulum. Before I watched that video, I was going, this is the year Shaq Thompson's got to prove to me that he's an elite player. I think he's got a lot to prove, because he's shown some good things. We've also asked him to play a little bit more nickel than I think is a necessity, or that he should be asked to play. But we just don't really play all that great in 3 linebacker sets because of the teams that we're having to face, like in Atlanta, who's just throwing all those receivers at you. And it's just not fair to put 3 linebackers out there and say, cover these wide receivers 40 yards downfield. But I watched that dang highlight video, and Shaq Thompson is an instinctive player, man. He's a playmaker, and he was making tackles. I know it's a highlight video, but it was then I watched that video, and then the next day it comes out, and it's like, we want Shaq to be the next thing. So the coaching staff, if he's not going to be the next thing, they seem to be trying to force the issue.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about that? How do you feel about, as Bill Voth said, Thomas Davis, who defies Father Time? How do you feel about kind of cycling Thomas Davis out for the younger player?
I think that's a great move. I think this is going to give Thompson some more confidence. It's going to allow him to gain experience, which is only going to improve his playmaking ability. And a fresher Thomas Davis going into the 4th quarter is only going to be a good thing for the Panthers.
Mel, do you think it's forcing? Sometimes I wonder this. Sometimes I'm like, there's a fine line between forcing an issue and scheming for your strength. You know what I'm saying? So you like go, is that we've got this great player who we think can be fantastic. We got to get him in there. You think that on the positive side, that's the glass half full. The glass half empty is that the coaching staff is trying to force it a little unnaturally. How do you feel about it?
I don't feel like they're the same player, though. They're not doing the same things. So I think it's going to be matchup derived. And I think there's times you want them both on the field. Because, I mean, what Shaq does is not the strength of Thomas Davis, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't see Shaq as the direct replacement to Thomas Davis eventually.
Well, I will tell you this. From what I read, they are planning on scheming for Shaq Thompson when he's in the game.
Right. I mean, he's not what Thomas Davis is, and Thomas is not what he is. Right? I mean, Thomas Davis is not going to be out in the covers the way Shaq is.
Right. Right, and I think that's it. I think they're going to use him more in coverage sets.
There you go.
And
he's tough against the run, though, man. He's a hard tackler.
He plays both well. He does play both well.
Yeah.
He's fast. You know, he's got good ball instincts. I mean, you have to put him on the field, man.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's kind of it's a good problem to have, and it's also I do think this. I think we started to see Thomas Davis. I know he played great. I'm not trying. I think if you really were honest with yourself, is that you're starting to see him slow a little bit.
Well, it has to happen. And
Yeah,
it's got to be.
it's okay.
It's got to. Yeah, it's got to be downhill from here. He's still a forever Panther, no matter what happens from here on out.
Well, also, man, he's played so much over the last 3 or 4 years.
Right.
I mean, we're talking like almost 1,000 plays a season.
Yeah, he's played like 100% of the downs almost. It seems like.
Yeah, so that's gonna wear and tear on you. You know, he's blessed in the regard that for those are he didn't take any punishment. So
That was one thing in the draft. I was kind of surprised we didn't take somebody who conceptually could be a developmental guy to come up in the linebacker ranks.
or maybe that's what Cash is.
Gosh, I'm tired of that. I feel like that's all we ever get. I feel like we have a ton of
Maybe
those
that's what
guys. I mean,
Cash-
we have
Well,
Mayo, Cash,
Yeah,
we got
but Mayo's an inside
Bullware now. A lot of people love Bullware.
who's an inside guy. You don't
Yeah,
have those outside linebackers though.
I think Cash is that guy.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's who we're hoping will be the next Thomas Davis or
There
Thomas
you go.
Davis-esque play.
I hope so. I like Cash.
All right. Last, I do want to give a shout out to. You can follow him on Twitter at NFL Panthers 07. He's been making YouTube videos from Washington State for forever, and he's a huge Panther fan. I mean, this guy is he's one of the most legitimate fans you're going to see for any team. He put out a Twitter post that said this: "When I was a kid, I dreamt of moving to Charlotte, North Carolina to be where the Panthers are. Today, that dream becomes a reality." So he's moving from Washington to North Carolina, and he's holding up a sign that says Bank of America, 2,510 miles.
Dude, you need to come tailgate with C3 because I just made the move from West Coast to East Coast. You need to come tailgate with us September 24th.
So fantastic. I'm glad to hear that. And
Did you see that was NFL Panthers 07?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah. So he does great YouTube videos. Got a great following too. Definitely watched him and taken some notes when I've watched those videos for sure. I did see this. Also, World Star fans tweeted out one of the best kick returns of all time, and they showed Joe Adams just shaking off every single player on the Tennessee Volunteers team and taking it to the house from the 40. I mean, he breaks like 8 tackles, dude. And then the very next tweet was, "Too bad he couldn't do that in Carolina." And so there's no way that was going to happen in the NFL. That was a bust of a pick. All right, guys, we're done. We got to get our ice up picks in and get out of here. Guys, I haven't mentioned this, but we'd love for you to support the show by giving us a share and smashing that like button. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit the like button. If you're watching on Facebook or watching now or later, like it, share it. That really helps a ton. And also, you can check us out on Patreon, where we would love to continue to help to build the show, build the network, and to bring you the best or the most up-to-date fan coverage of the Carolina Panthers. Joe,
thank you to all the folks out there that already do that, which has been
for sure.
It's fantastic.
Tremendous help, and in fact, it's that money that's really helped us. I got a new computer, which has led to better sound quality, better video production. So it is helping a ton. And we are totally reinvesting in Panther Nation, so we appreciate that. Joe, you got an ice up pick for us this week?
This week is coming from the NBA. Golden State forward, I believe, Zaja Pachulia, not very well known, I don't believe, has done the disservice of NBA fans of spraining Kawhi Leonard's ankle of the San Antonio Spurs, for one of the best players in the NBA. If you have not heard of them, look them up on YouTube. You will be impressed. The Golden State Warriors were getting blown out by the San Antonio Spurs. So, in the course of a jump shot by Kawhi Leonard, Pachulia kind of steps underneath him, and Kawhi Leonard comes down on his foot and severely sprains his ankle. So, Leonard was out for the game after that. And during the remainder of the game, the Golden State Warriors were able to come back and pull out a win in San Antonio, which is a very tough thing to do because they're very good at home. And without their best player, it wasn't a problem. And just to kind of tie all this together, Kawhi Leonard is still out, and they're playing tonight. And it just got to be halftime in this game, and it's 72-44 Golden State.
Gosh.
At halftime. So there you go. Mr. Pachulia, and for the fans of the San Antonio Spurs and just fans of competitive basketball, I say I said a cheap shot.
Ice up. You know what is fun? You got to go watch Popovich's talk about that afterwards. I've never seen Pop had the most for him being the angriest, probably. He was the most outgoing and charismatic of his moment of his whole career in this, where he's just trashing Jaja. And then at the end, he goes, any follow-up? I mean, like, he made a joke at the end, and it was very personable. You got to go watch that on YouTube. Aaron, you got an ice-up pick for us this week?
I do, and I could stick with the NBA as our beloved Hornets suffer and limp along with the 11th pick in the NBA lottery, while the Celtics, of all teams, think can get the number 1 pick. I think that was Amanda Helms's ice-up pick of the week, but I'm not going to steal hers. I've got one here. You know, I'm really kind of enjoying the Panthers being underrated on offense and people really saying Cam Newton is not worthy of the hype and that our offense is a thing of the past, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm just going to call somebody out who put it in writing, and I'm going to keep this article, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later in the year. But NFL around the NFL writer, Chris Wesseling, actually put out an article.
He blocked me, by the way, so I don't know what this article is.
He put out an article, and hey, man, that just means you're quality at what you do, Professor. At this Jack Rabbit is yeah. All right, but he posted the top 10 offenses in the NFL, and can you believe 3 teams from the NFC South were in that top 10? But the Carolina Panthers were not.
Oh, gosh, of course. Jerk.
Wow. So you take Cam Newton and you add in Christian McCaffrey and everything else that this team was just 2 years ago, and now even better, at least on paper at this point. So after one down year, you go and you put the Tampa Bay Bucks, who have been the offseason winners for 10 years running, along with the Saints and the Falcons, put them ahead of the Panthers. I'm going to pin this article to my Twitter timeline, and we're going to talk about this later in the year, Mr. Wesseling. I'll make it short and sweet. Ice up, son.
All right. I was going to have to do a side ice-up pick for Kuntz, at Kuntz53, great Panther fan on Twitter. And he tweeted out 6 hours ago, thankfully, only 4 people. Actually, no, never mind. I was looking at the wrong one. 848 people retweeted this tweet. And it says this: the lottery is tonight, and I guarantee the Hornets will get a top 5 pick. If they don't, I will buy everyone who retweets this a Bowberry biscuit. So he has to buy 848 Bowberry biscuits.
Make it 849.
He is totally not going to do it. But what was cool is a ton of Charlotte restaurants come in and said, we admire your, Bricks Wood Fired Pizza said this: we admire your courage. As a reward, if the Hornets get a top 5, how about a pizza on us? I saw somebody else say we'll give you a beer. if you come in and show this tweet. So I thought that was cool, but poor guy, we're gonna have to ice you up for 848 biscuits. My ice up pick is a dual one, Joe, and I'm going back. You're gonna be like, oh my god, back to politics. It's a politics and a comedy one. I'm icing up Saturday Night Live and Sean Spicer this week, and Sean Spicer, Spicy, is the press secretary who has been, I guess he had to go. I don't believe this is that he had a week off for some reason, or all of a sudden you saw Huckabee's daughter is doing it, and she's the deputy press secretary. They said he had reserve duty. I didn't know that. You would think if the president was your boss, you could get out of reserve drill on the weekends or whatever you got to do. But I'm icing up Sean Spicer because after the crap came out, what was it that came out? It was the firing of Comey. He literally hid in the bushes from the reporters. He just did not want, and actually I understand it. I get it. But you got to ice a man up because, as one of my family members said, because I said, I kind of feel bad for Spicy because of what he's got to deal with every day. Imagine that. What your job actually is. He said, look, he's a grown man. He made a decision to take that job. He knew what he was getting into. Don't feel sorry for him. So I'm icing him up for hiding in the bushes from the press, who was going to give him a reaming. I'm also icing up Saturday Night Live. Although I think that what's her name's portrayals of Sean Spicer are absolutely hilarious. I think it's so funny. I thought the skit, they had 10 million people tune in to Saturday Night Live. We stayed up after a long day, my wife and I, just to watch this opening, with where you get them doing, who is it that does Trump? Alec Baldwin. Yeah, it's so good. It's so funny. And it's just, it's low-hanging fruit for them in some ways. They got great material. They should be thanking Trump more than anybody for the ratings. But I thought at the end where they made Sean Spicer and Donald Trump, who is it that portrayed Sean Spicer? What's her name? Melissa McCarthy?
Oh, yeah.
So they kissed at the end, and they portrayed them as kind of having a gay thing at the end. So I'm icing them up for that. And the reason being is this: it was funny. I laughed. I ain't gonna lie. It didn't upset me, but I did think this is that was just all they were doing was poking the bear, because they know that Trump doesn't like a woman playing Sean Spicer. Not only does he not like them making fun of them, but he said something about having a woman do it. I don't know what the innuendo he's saying that message has, but I knew that when they made the two kiss, that they were just trying to get a rise out of Trump. And I went straight to his Twitter feed. I was watching, here we go. I'm ready for it. So I'm going to ice up all of those people tonight. I think that was very fair and balanced. I gave both dual time, Joe.
There you go.
Equal time. All right, guys, we're going to get out of here, and I've got a exit scene for us to get out of here. Joe Riolano, tell them where they can follow you at.
You guys follow me on Twitter at Joe Riolano.
Mel Mayock, it's good to see you again, and we might even see you next week.
Yes, sir. I will be here with bells on. But
what you got going on these days?
Oh man, just
no draft tech. Are you not drafting? Are you not mocking 2022?
No, we got a little bit of a reprieve from Draft Tech here for just a little while, which is a great website. Go check it out. There's already a big board for the talent for next year. We're not doing mock drafts yet, but that'll be starting back up. But I am the Panthers analyst for Draft Tech, and you can catch up with me anytime at Panthers Drafter on Twitter. Happy to talk with anybody. You follow me, I'll follow you.
All right, my name's Tony Dunn. You can follow me at cat_chronicles. I encourage you to subscribe to the C3 podcast if you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, YouTube. Smash that like button. Share the podcast. It could really help us grow. And then also support. Consider donating as little as $1 $1 from each of our fans and each of our listeners could go a ton into building what we think could one day be a fantastic fan network that covers all sports without the middleman. So we'll check you out next Tuesday, 9 p.m. for the C3 podcast. Until then, keep pounding and make sure to go get your Bowberry biscuit from Kuntz53 on Twitter. That's the C3 podcast, guys.